for this next part, you're going to need a long, skinny, stiff screwdriver. This thing's tiny, 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 tiny. I call this my tweaker. You want a really tiny, tiny screwdriver, okay? We're going to make a tiny hole. You're going to need the template. The template comes with your speakers. This is going to tell us how big of a hole we need to cut to get the speaker up into the attic. Template, a drywall saw, and measuring tape. Okay, now sound doesn't actually travel very well in a pocket, up in this little pocket in the corner, so we don't want to put our speaker up here in this little pocket. We're going to bring our speaker about 8 inches off the wall. And then I'm going to take, I want to make sure that my speakers are in line all the way across the front, so I'm going to take and cut my speaker hole right up against this stud. Now in order to find that stud, I take my tweaker, I'm going to find the center of the speaker, so if I have this thing 8 inches away from the wall, right there, I'm going to start poking little tiny holes as I move towards that stud because I want to hit it dead on. So I'm going to go right here. See how my tweaker goes all the way up? I'm going to go a little bit closer, all the way up, a little bit closer, all the way up, a little bit closer. This thing marks my, this thing right here marks my truss. A little bit closer. There's the edge of my stud right there. So I'm not going to actually use that mark because that's where I'm hitting the stud. I'm going to use the mark right in front of it where I didn't hit the stud. Put that center with my speaker. Double check that I'm 8 inches away off the wall. About 8 1/4, so we're going to go 8 right there. I'm on my mark, everything looks good. I've already sent my helper up into the attic. My helper's already told me the attic is clear. I'm ready to put a speaker in right here. I'm going to take a pencil, not a Sharpie, not a felt tip marker at all. Use a felt tip marker. You're never going to get that mark off the ceiling if you accidentally touch or for some reason. If you weren't able to get access and you have a mark on your ceiling, that mark is always going to be there. So we're going to use a pencil. Draw around the template. Just like that. Now, they do make tools for cutting speakers. It's got a big dish on it, and it has a blade that spins around and cuts the hole. I don't like using those. You never know if you're going to damage something in the ceiling. It gets a little too weird. I've had some problems using those things. So I found it's always better and it's safer to use a hand drywall saw. Use a little cardboard box to catch your stuff. Cover up everything with a tarp, and we're going to come back later on and vacuum up anything that we didn't drop. But this is dusty. This part's dusty. So just be ready for it. Get the TV out of the way. And I'm going to start cutting the hole. Now, when I cut the speaker holes, I don't cut, I've got that pencil mark around my template. I like to cut just a hair, literally a hair, outside the line. Because I found if I cut inside the line, if I cut on the line, it's too tight and I have to end up widening out the hole. So I cut just a taste. I'm not talking a 1/4 inch, I'm talking like a 1/16 of an inch outside that line right there, just to make sure my speaker's going to fit in there perfectly. There's a little bezel that goes around the speaker, covers up the hole, you'll never see it, and that way it goes in each time the first time. So I'm going to go ahead and start cutting this hole, catching all my dust. Okay, I'm just about ready to finish cutting the speaker in, and I was just talking to Wade, who's my helper, and Wade said I didn't do a very good job explaining how I took my measurements here. So what I did is I went 8 inches off the wall to the center of the edge of my speaker. For example, I went 8 inches to here, not to here. If I take a measurement to here, that's not really 8 inches off the wall, is it? We're talking that's like 7.5. And then when I started poking the holes in the ceiling, I did the same thing. I poked the center of I poked these holes in the ceiling trying to find that that truss on the center of the speaker. That way, after I'm all done, if I were to poke the holes going off the edge of the speaker here, well, when I put the speaker up, you're going to see some little tiny holes kind of trailing off the edge. So I do it right here in line with the center to make sure when I'm all done, this speaker covers up all of the work that I've done, makes it look nice and clean. Okay, now I'm getting ready to drop the speaker, or drop the my cutout. Now this isn't a studio, this isn't a mock-up set, this is a real installation, so I don't really have the liberty to go back and reshoot things, so sometimes I have to come back, revisit, and explain things a little bit further. We only get one shot at this. This is a real installation. So, as I'm expecting, as I cut this out, there's going to be a little bit of dust coming out. This thing's going to drop out, it's going to hit. I want to make sure I catch it. There might be a little bit of insulation that drops out. Depending on the type of insulation that you have at your house, you might have the blown-in stuff. The blown-in stuff, when this thing drops, that stuff goes everywhere. You might want to lay down plastic all over the place. Get this box right up next to the ceiling. Get ready to catch it because there's going to be a lot coming out. In this case, we don't have that stuff. It's just going to be a little bit of powder dropping down. Okay, here we go. Just like that. Here's my installation up here. Nice, free, clear, open attic. I'm right up against the stud. That's not a problem. Your speaker will still fit up in there. Right up against the stud, lots of space. This is my front left speaker. I'm going to go and cut in the rest of my speakers. I'm going to make sure that I take precise measurements. I know you guys at home, you guys have just got some brand new equipment. You guys are excited to get it in. You guys can't wait. Maybe you took a day off work. You only have one day to do it. I recommend take your time. You have a lot of time, even if you can't finish it in one day. Take a lot of time. Make sure you do this the right way. You're never going to come back. You're never going to fix this. Even though you think, oh, someday I'll come back, you won't. You'll never come back and fix this. Get it right the first time. Make it look nice. Your wife will love you for it. I have my front left, my front right, back left speakers all cut in. I saved this one for last because I really wanted to talk about symmetry. When you guys are cutting your speakers in, one thing is to make them sound nice, but we also wanted to make it look nice, make it look like we tried to be symmetrical inside the room. That's really, really, really important, especially to me. It is crucial to me that things look symmetrical. It makes it look professional, makes it look like you tried to match the room and you went through a lot of effort. It just really, in my opinion, makes the installation really look nice and clean when things are symmetrical. So look at your ceiling, see what you can be symmetrical with. So you might have recessed lighting or in-ceiling lighting, some can lights. In this case, we have ceiling fans. Now whoever installed these ceiling fans did a really good job. They're perfectly center in the room. I took measurements off camera. They're 81 3/4 of an inch to the center of the fan. Okay? Just because I took the measurement doesn't necessarily mean that all the fans in the room, all the lights are perfectly even. So after you find your measurement, really important, take your template, stick it up on the ceiling, and then get somebody else and say, does this look straight? You might move this over 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, 3/4 of an inch. You move that thing around until it looks nice and clean and straight. Now, as we were talking about earlier, I've already gone and taken my measurements off camera. I've already drawn in my template. And as you can see right here, this is what I was talking about trusting your stud finder. My stud finder said that my stud was right here. So I started poking holes. Found out that my stud actually goes all the way over here. Now I've got these 4 little tiny holes that are not going to get covered up by the speaker. The speaker will cover up this one, but it's not going to cover up these 2 holes right here. So I'm going to have to come back a little bit later with a little tiny bit of spackle, cover that up. Really, really, really super minor, but that's just another point. Don't just trust what your stud finder says. Make sure you go back and you double check all of your work. So, in short, summarize, make sure things are symmetrical, take your time. When you take your measurements, that's going to give you the rough idea. Don't trust just your measurements. The measuring tape that we're going to be using is your eyes. That's what's going to determine if things are in line or not after the installation's done. So make sure, after you take the measurements, make sure that it looks symmetrical.